So, Pastors Dan and Dell here. Today, we're talking about fear, particularly when it comes to fear in our kids. And Dell has teenagers. I have a few young teens and then a bunch of younger ones. And, at different levels, I think they all know, other than the babies at my house, but the rest of them all know that something's different about the world. They know they can't go anywhere. The older ones had to do school reports about the coronavirus, so they're well aware of symptoms and treatments and death rates and all of that. And they also see me being, maybe a little overprotective about not letting them interface with neighbors or washing their hands after they touch things that just got dropped off at our house or things like that. We're just trying to be super careful. We've got a few people with risk factors, and but I do think that, like, at the same time as we're working through all that, probably, I mean, I'm hearing my kids pray at night for the people who are sick. I'm hearing them pray for the doctors who are trying to make cures and vaccines and all of that. So I think they understand it enough to be at least a little bit afraid of what's going on. And kind of makes me wonder two things, like, how do we coach them through that very real and legitimate fear that there could be people they know who are sick, or they could be sick in the future. And then maybe the other fear is sort of like that this really never actually ends, like that there could be, for years we could have this really difficult, terrible disease kind of among us. And so, Dell, as you've helped a lot of people in a kind of a pastoral therapeutic way, I'm sure you've encountered people who are afraid of things before. It's like, how would you coach me to coach my kids, to help them process their fear in a godly way?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the first thing I think we need to just let our kids know is that we're not afraid of them being afraid. So fear is a human response. They're not babies. We don't need to try to talk them out of their fear, in terms of in any kind of way that would make them afraid to actually tell us that they're afraid. So, getting that on the table, like, it's pretty normal to be afraid. And that's not the main point. The main point is, do we know how to respond to it?
Okay, so how do we respond to it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the first thing from a Christian perspective is to remind them and ourselves that God is with us. Like, so He's not unaware of the issues that we're facing. He knows our weakness, and He's actually invited us to talk to Him about our fears. And He's promised all kinds of things, including to be with us. So He doesn't promise that we're never going to have hard times, or that we're never going to experience threats, and things that could really bring, hardship into our lives. But He has promised that He's not going to leave us, and that He's going to be with us all the way to the end of it. And so we're not alone. And so I think praying with our kids, and taking our fears to God is, like, probably the place to start. But then I think that's not it. I think there's other things that we can do. So after we've brought God into the conversation, and we've prayed about it, then I think we also can understand a little bit about how fear works in our bodies. So really anything that gets our mind onto something else, so that actually replaces the fearful thought or anxiety, gives it a chance to be released. So, for kids, even coloring or, drawing a picture or anything that gets their concentration off of the thing that they're afraid of is going to help relieve some of that fear, in their bodies. And then even beyond that, anything that gets us out of our heads, helps relieve and release fear in our bodies. So movement of our bodies is, like, super important. So that's why, like, singing a song, that involves more of your body, can relieve fear. Playing Simon Says, with younger kids, actually is not only getting their mind off of it, but it's using their body. So that's going to help release their fear. Doing jumping jacks, having some part of your schedule that involves some exercise for kids. You can look it up on the internet. But those body movements will get them out of their head, but it also will burn energy and fear And then I think like using stories to let them know that they're not the only people who have gone through fear. So there's stories in the Bible of people who were afraid and like faced, dangerous situations, and they had experiences with God and with others, and they came out the other side. I think those stories are great to, tell our kids during times like this. But also, there's stories from history. We're not the only generation that's faced fears. I mean, our grandparents and other people, like in our own family networks, have gone through tough times, and our kids need to hear the stories of others who have, experienced hardships and dealt with them. They responded to them in all kinds of different ways and come out the other side. We're listening every evening as part of our family story time to Andrew Peterson, like is a Christian guy who has written not only music but also novels. He's got a great series called the Wing Feather series, and he's actually reading it out loud every night for an hour, where you can have story time with Andrew Peterson. And so there's all kinds of stuff online from good Christian people, including Real Media. Like I think it's called Real Media, that we've got a church subscription to, that will have stories that can reshape the imagination of our kids and help them process their fear by watching how other people have dealt with it.
That makes sense. That's good. Do you have any words? Like, I know you've got a couple adult children that and I'm sure a lot of our BCBC family has adult children as well. Like, are there any different dynamics? Have you been in a little bit of a coaching role with them? What's their response to all this been?
Yeah, we are using, with older kids, the great thing that you have at your disposal that sometimes you don't with younger kids is they can have more evolved conversations. Mm-hmm. So we're actually using our dinner time to be a time to check in with each other. And Deborah's making a separate video that I can post on the check-in process that we use, but it's actually a way to let everybody sort of register how they're doing on a scale with just their own feelings about life right now. And it's just a way to get a conversation going. It doesn't always have to be about the virus. It's just about,
right,
our overall response to like life right now. But it gives a chance to like check in, be heard, and then that always gives way to all kinds of conversations that we can share from experience in our lives and different things to really process stuff.
That's great. All right. We'll find that video you just mentioned that Deborah's doing. We can put that on the Facebook feed as well. That'd be neat to share. And everybody will be back again, but stay healthy and stay focused on the Lord in this time. That there's, like Del said, we're not the first generation to face trial and difficulty, and we won't be the last, I'm sure, either. But if we have our perspective right, and if we keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, then we really don't. We know that we really don't need to worry, regardless of what happens in this world, because we're a part of a bigger story and an eternal story. So, hope you have a great day today.